Hi folks, I'm Dan Payne, and this is Web Accessibility for Business Owners. In this video, I'll talk about some of the disabilities that people have and how they impact their ability to interact with the web. Having a better understanding of disability helps us to think more inclusively. Let's get started. The Centers for Disease Control estimates that 25% of Americans, that's 1 in 4 people, have some form of disability. The World Health Organization says that more than 1 billion people globally have a disability. Now, not every disability prevents you from using the web, but I bring these numbers up because it may surprise you just how common disabilities are. And guess what? If you live long enough, you're pretty much guaranteed to experience some form of disability yourself. The abilities most commonly affected are vision, hearing, mobility, cognition, and privilege. Vision. Did you know that relatively few people with visual disabilities actually experience a full black field of vision? Visual disabilities manifest in a huge number of ways, with many different causes and severities. Effectively, we're talking about a decreased ability to see to a degree that causes problems not fixable by usual means, such as glasses or medication. So that includes low vision, where folks may use eyeglasses, medications, or surgical techniques to improve their vision, but they still have difficulty seeing. There's also color blindness. 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women experience a form of color blindness. There's a misconception that people with color blindness see only in black and white, but there are many types and degrees. Hearing. Like visual disabilities, there's a wide array of types, causes, and severities of deafness. Where deafness impacts a person using the web the most is in live or pre-recorded content with an audio component. Things like videos with an audio track or a Zoom meeting. I'll talk more about this in my assistive technologies video, but for deaf people, things like captions, transcripts, and sign language interpreters are essential for their ability to understand audible content. Mobility. People with partial or complete inability to use limbs, tremors or coordination disabilities affecting their dexterity or sensory abilities, can struggle with navigation or interactive elements on the web. In a lot of cases, techniques like increasing the amount of time allowed for interactions can help. There are also many assistive technologies out there that help with things like navigation and interaction, and again, we'll talk more about these in the assistive technologies video. Cognition. Memory, attention, and comprehension make up the main cognitive abilities we use when interacting with the web. People with autism, attention deficit, dyslexia, dyscalculia, traumatic brain injury, and so many other conditions have impacts to these cognitive abilities. Once again, providing more time for interactions really helps. Also things like having proper headings and lists, logical reading order, reduced complexity of written content, instructions, and error messages, consistent fonts, colors, and locations of page elements. All of these and more can make your site a lot easier to navigate and use. I like to point out that improving the cognitive accessibility of your site can have some of the biggest impact for everyone, though. I think the title of Steve Krug's book says it all. Don't make me think. Privilege. Privilege isn't traditionally brought up in discussions about accessibility, but if you can't afford a high-speed internet connection, or if your connection is slow, or your device is old, those are barriers. Among the many other troubling ways that non-disabled developers tend to think is to not consider that they're developing on the fastest, newest machine over a gigabit or faster Ethernet connection with an ultra-high-resolution display and every other bell and whistle you can think of. They're developing experiences that people in underserved communities with 3G signals on an iPhone 4 from 2010 are trying to use. As designers and developers, we need to take into account that not everyone has the privilege of access to the latest technologies and need to make our products robust and optimized for a variety of conditions. So beyond the disabilities I've mentioned, I also want to point out that many people experience multiple disabilities. Of course, our human complexity means that these diagnoses vary wildly. For people with some conditions, there are patterns that make some disabilities more likely. For example, people born with the genetic condition called Usher syndrome usually develop both hearing and vision loss. It's the most frequent cause of deafblindness. Stickler syndrome varies widely, but some people develop severe vision and mobility impairments. And there are many other conditions like Zellweger, Goldenhar, and Down syndromes that manifest with a mixture of vision, hearing, motor, and cognitive impairments. So disabilities can be permanent, degenerative, temporary, episodic, and situational. Permanent. Whether acquired at birth or via injury or disease, some disabilities will never improve over time. In these cases, we tend to see the strongest use and development of assistive technologies, which we'll talk about more in a coming video. Degenerative. Some disabilities tend to become more severe over time. For example, Alzheimer's, cystic fibrosis, multiple sclerosis, and more. People with degenerative conditions may be able to function at a certain level today, but we can expect that to change or deteriorate as time goes on. Temporary. If you've broken a bone or had some other injury or illness that prevented you from doing the things you normally would, and then recovered, you've still had a disability. Episodic. For episodic disabilities, you might think of migraines or epileptic seizures, but for people with diabetes, HIV, cancer, and multiple sclerosis, some days are better than others, and on a bad day, they may face severe disability. Situational. Sometimes our abilities are impacted by a situation, like being unable to hear a television in a noisy restaurant, carrying lots of groceries, making it hard to open a door, or speaking with someone who doesn't understand your language. All are impediments to our typical abilities to function. But with closed captions, automatically opening doors, and translation apps, we can make situations like these easier. So in conclusion, ability and disability are sometimes thought of as opposite extremes on a single axis. As we've seen, it's way more complex than that. From the type of ability affected to the severity and duration, it's more like there are as many disabilities out there as there are people. Everyone's different, and what may work for one may not work for others. So now that we have an idea of the scope and scale of disabilities, in my next video, we'll talk about some of the barriers that people with disabilities face when they use the web. Thanks for watching. Cheers.